Welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. My name is Dr. Gastard Harrigan, the podcast for current and emerging school leaders, those who support and supervise them. You will hear from passionate educational leaders who are transforming their schools, communities, and creating positive outcomes for students. I will also share my personal reflections and tips from over 15 years as a school leader. Together, we will talk about how to level up our schools and leadership practices. Hello, and welcome to the School Leaders Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gastard Harrigan. Before we get started, I would like to thank all of you who are listening and sharing the podcast. When you share the podcast or an episode, don't forget to tag me so I can personally thank you. I would like to thank Rita on Twitter for continuing to share the podcast and the different episodes. Thank you to David Prosper for sharing also the podcast. Right now, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and to share this episode. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and a comment. Let's get started. In today's episode, I'm going to share strategies to deal with challenging student behaviors. Coming out of the pandemic, we have noticed across this state and throughout the United States that students' misbehaviors have gotten worse. While we have always dealt with student misbehaviors before the pandemic, it appears that the pandemic have negatively influenced students and have really caused students to have difficult time coming out of the pandemic and self-regulating their behaviors. So as school principals and school leaders, I know across your schools or across your district or state, you are facing challenging behaviors. It is almost safe to say that most students have been impacted by this pandemic, and it has directly impacted students' ACEs. ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences. In fact, it is said that according to Mendenham, that up to 2/3 of U.S. children have experienced at least one type of serious childhood trauma, such as abuse, neglect, natural disaster, or experiencing or witnessing violence. And that number have significantly increased after this pandemic. So I believe that this is one of the reasons we are seeing an increase in misbehaviors and stress and lack of self-regulation in our students across our schools. Schools truly are dealing with high level of misbehaviors. For example, threats, suicide, anxieties, physical assaults and attacks that before we were not experiencing them, at least not early on part of the school year. But again, students are making poor decisions, and I think that has a direct correlation to their ACEs, their adverse childhood experiences, which the pandemic have significantly impacted. Also, we have a huge teacher shortage. We are seeing lots of teaching positions going unfilled, both locally and across the state. In fact, across the nation, districts are trying to grapple with how to instruct and cover classes while dealing with challenging student behavior and poor decision. And I'm sure to all the school leaders, teachers, and principals that are listening, you are seeing the same things that are happening. Teachers are stressed out. And so in the next few minutes, I'm going to share some of the strategies school leaders or principals can implement to help manage students' misbehaviors and stress, to help really students manage their own stress and their own self, to help them to be a little bit more successful. Strategy number 1 is to incorporate some form of morning meetings. Every school should start with morning meeting. It is where you can incorporate SEL and trauma-informed strategies. In this specific time, it can be the first 10 to 15 minutes of your class where you're incorporating SEL strategies, where you're incorporating trauma-informed strategies to provide students and build students' resiliency skills. At the secondary level, it could be during your advisory block that you're taking some time to incorporate some SEL lesson. At my school, morning meeting are part of the first period. We use a protocol to incorporate SEL strategies. We incorporate videos. We have discussions, and we also take the time to incorporate breathing techniques, because part of what we are trying to do is help students, give them strategies and tools and techniques to help them de-escalate themselves, to help them self-regulate. It is teaching students how to be self-aware and ways to manage their emotions and their behaviors. So simply morning meeting is an opportunity to help students connect, to build relationship. Part of morning meeting is to help teachers connect with students, build relationship. It also helps establish a climate of trust, a climate where they can trust their teacher, their staff. It creates that community in the classroom. It also fosters a positive learning environment for students. That is why I'm one of the believers who believe every school should have some form of a morning meeting to create that positive climate for students. The second strategy you can do to really help students manage their behaviors and stress are mindfulness activities. Mindfulness activities are 2 to 3 minutes activities that a teacher can incorporate into their classroom. It could be in the beginning of the classroom. It really could be in any period throughout the days. It's really a welcoming, inclusive activity. It's part of the routine. It's a ritual that helps you build a community in the classroom, help you connect with students before they begin to do work. It is really an engaging activity which include brain breaks, right? Turn and talk to help anchor student thinking and learning throughout the learning experience. So each school really can take 2 or 3 minutes to embed some form of mindfulness activity, especially if your school who says, well, I don't have time in my schedule to incorporate morning meetings. Again, mindfulness activities could be one of the easier first step to really incorporate some form of a SEL, some form of trauma-informed strategies into your classroom. Now, if you're listening, you say, well, we really just don't have time. We really need to just get into the curriculum. I would say to your teachers already spending time redirecting behaviors. So they're already spending that 2 to 5 or even 7 minutes already and being reactive. By incorporating mindfulness activities, you could be proactive. By each class, before the class begin, you begin the first 2 to 3 minutes by helping students centered, by helping students really self-regulate, de-escalate, and center themselves, prepare themselves to really transition into the teaching, transition to really being prepared and ready for instruction. Mindfulness activity allow you to be intentional and help students really just help them center themselves before they begin with the instruction. That will reduce the number of time teachers are spending redirecting, getting students back focused on the instruction. So by starting with mindfulness activities, you're really helping the students settle down, center themselves, calm their nerves, and get ready for instruction. Third strategy you can do to really help students manage their behaviors and stress is prioritize positive relationship. And I know everybody knows it's important to have positive relationship with students, but prioritizing it, making it very important. So when I say prioritizing it, I'm saying making and creating intentional activities, intentional times throughout the day to connect with student. Every school, every teacher, every leader should prioritize positive relationship in their schools, in their classroom. That simply means that every student have a positive contact or a positive touch daily. So when I say positive contact or positive touch daily, what I mean by that is throughout the day, there should be an adult in their life throughout the school day that is making positive deposit in their emotional bank, that is connecting and touching with them. Not talking about necessarily about behavior, but just somebody in the building checking with them. So school leaders, you can work with your teachers and staff to ensure every student in the building have a positive staff member who they can go to. It could be a mentor. It could be a support staff. It could be a teacher that they have on campus who they can reach out to, who they know if they're having a tough time, if they need to speak to somebody, there's somebody they could go to, and that person will be there to really connect with them. Positive relationship with our kids are very important. I often like to say, when working with students, success starts with building a positive relationship and ends without one. Let me say that again. When working with students, success starts with building a positive relationship and it ends without one. So it's very important that as classroom teachers, as school leaders, we prioritize making sure every child has a champion in the building. In fact, Rita Pearson in her TED Talk emphasized the importance of every child having a champion on campus. Every child in your building, in your school, should have somebody who's advocating for them, somebody who they can go to, connect with, who in your building, who they can talk to, who can really invest positively into them. It's very important that we are building positive relationship with students. One teacher or one staff on your campus can be the difference maker in a child's life. Let me repeat that again. One teacher or a staff in your building, on your campus, can be the difference maker in a child's life. It's very important each child has somebody on that campus they can go to. That connection is positive. Somebody who can advocate for them. We need more staff members who are championing, standing, supporting our students. Other strategy you can use to really help students manage their misbehavior and stress is have a comfort corner. A comfort corner is a cell room where students go to de-escalate. If they are having a tough day, a tough moment at that moment, they can, instead of blowing up, disrupting the learning environment, you can create a process where students are allowed to go into this comfort corner or comfort room, whatever you want to call it. But what's important is that in that specific room or environment, you should set it up. You should have sofas, tables, bean bags in there, soft music playing in the background. The main important thing is that it is there to help students de-escalate, to help students refocus, to help students recentered. And one of the things you can do is that upon entry in that classroom, students complete a journal entry. And by writing down whatever it is as they are going through, that would help them process their thoughts, their emotion, whatever that challenging moment they're having, they're able to process it by writing it down. There could be a staff member, a counselor, a therapist in the room that manages that room, that helps students process the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts, whatever the challenge that they are going through at that specific moment. Obviously, if it's more than few minutes, you could have a process where that student is referred to another staff member, another counselor, or therapist on campus who can really help them take a little bit more time to process and help them process a little bit if they're not ready to class. But a comfort corner could be a great way, instead of students exploding in class, if they can manage their emotion at that moment, there could be a process procedure in place where students are able to go there, help center, help de-escalate, help process their emotions, and then be ready to return back to class in few minutes. Another strategy is to have a SEL classroom. Not every school may be able to implement this, but I think this is very important. The SEL class is really an alternative class. It's an elective, I should say, not alternative. It's an elective class that allows you to provide targeted Tier 2 support and intervention to struggling students. It allows you in that classroom to implement, to use. For us, we align our SEL class around the 5 around the CASEL's 5 core competency of social emotional learning. So that classroom just really helped to support students, help them to develop SEL skills, and process the various strategies we are sharing with them. The class is designed to really help reinforce those core SEL skills. It gives them a time, a place where the teacher can walk them through and help them develop these key skills to help them become very successful. You could use variety of programs out there. I'm on this podcast. I'm not necessarily going to promote a specific program. There are tons of them out there. We've shifted to a different program. We've used at least 2 different programs that I think are very beneficial. The point is not necessarily about the curriculum. Yes, the curriculum should be research based to help students with their self-regulation, with resiliency skill, to help build their self-confidence, leadership skills. These things are very important, and there are tons of curriculum out there that you can use, or there are things you could really create within your district. The key thing for a SEL class, it's those students who may be struggling, and depending on your school, depending on the data, you may be able to target them, provide them with those tier 2 support in a specific class where they get it daily to help them build those social, emotional, and ultimately leading to academic success. Another strategies that really could help students is that every school should develop a positive behavior intervention and support plan, a PBIS plan. Every school leader should develop a PBIS plan. It is a proactive approach to help improve students' outcome by providing support to them, and that support is around behavior. But the key thing is that it is preventive and it is not punishment. Right? It is not a curriculum to learn or to teach, but really it is creating a process to support behavior, to support students' to provide them with cultural support, to provide them with support to ensure and help them achieve academic and emotional success. Typically in the PBIS, you have a 3-tiered framework or 3-tiered approach. Tiered 1 is usually the primary tier, school-wide, where it's focused on creating and maintaining school-wide support. You should have support and interventions that are school-wide. So part of our PBIS plan, we include transportation, being on the bus, some strategies to be successful while transporting our students, school-wide strategies in the cafeteria, in the hallway, just to help students be successful. Tier 2 is the secondary tier, right? It focuses on creating and maintaining classroom level support. That could be through your morning meeting, or it could be the mindfulness activity, whatever strategy you design with support, with interventions. Tier 3, focus attention on creating and maintaining individual support to students. Each school should have a positive behavior intervention and support plan to help support students and their academic development and success. There you have it, folks. I hope you were able to take away at least one nugget or strategy to help improve and manage student behaviors. Thank you for joining me today. Please consider subscribing to the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and a comment, share this episode with a friend, and on social media. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for leadership ideas and tips. Again, thank you for joining me today. Until next time.